I spent 2 decades as a Fortune 500 head of HR sitting in the rooms where promotions were decided. I'm Courtney O'Connell, and I'm bringing you inside the promotion room. Today, I'm sitting down with Kacy Wickenhauser, an aspiring ER doc turned Chief Human Resources Officer who has earned a reputation for combining strategic business thinking with a deeply human approach to leadership. In this conversation, Kacy and I talk about the lifelong impact of logical decision making, how to use your personal values to drive how you're showing up at work, and our take on executive presence and bring your whole self to work. If you are ambitious, thoughtful about your career, and looking for practical advice from someone who's been in the room where leadership decisions are made, you're going to love this conversation. Here's my interview with Kacy. Hi, Kacy. Welcome to the promotion room.
Hi, Courtney. Thanks.
I've had a string of HR folks on the pod, which I, of course, love because we're the ones who really know what is going on behind the scenes. So I know we're going to get into a lot of it. But before we do, I always like to start with just getting to know you. So where are you from and what did you want to be when you were a little girl?
I am from South Central Illinois, kind of in the middle of the cornfields, Midwest gal, still live in the Midwest, but I'm in Michigan now. I wanted to be an ER physician from the time that I even knew what a job was, which I am not doing today, as you noted.
How did you veer off the pre-med path?
I had this moment in my junior year of college where the thought of the crushing amount of debt that it would take for me to get through med school just hit me like a ton of bricks. That, and if I'm being real honest, organic chemistry, crushed my spirit. It was so hard. And I thought, can I do this? And at that moment, I was like, maybe there's a different path for me. So yeah those two things together.
So I was an economics major in college until I got to econometrics. And I remember I walked into that class and it was like Goodwill Hunting. The professor's up at the board and it was hieroglyphics. And I'm looking around to think we're all going to be like, what is happening? And everyone's nodding and taking notes. They were totally tracking. And I was like, okay, so I'm an econ minor. So sometimes we have to just catch ourselves in the moment. Do you ever regret, though? I'm always curious about taking such a logical pivot, right? So you were thinking the debt, and that's a very logical, brain-based thing to think about and drive decisions. So now you're years and years into a really successful career, but do you ever regret not following your little girl's desire?
I do actually regret it. I think it was really from this, I didn't know the word at the time, but it was just this real scarcity mindset that I had of I don't know that I can do this. And I couldn't ask my parents for $300,000 to go to med school. And I do sometimes regret it. I think I would have been good at it. I think I could have done it. My college roommate did it. She tells me now, listen, you're living a way better life. This schedule sucks. It's terrible.
Yeah.
But I do sometimes think, what if I would have done that? Yeah. To your point of how can I weave some of those childhood dreams into my current life or my future life? I have dreams of going back and re-upping my EMT license one day so I can still get some of that.
There you go.
I can still get some of that.
There you go.
In my future.
All right.
One day when I'm
Life
not
is
so busy.
long. Life is long. All right. Well, we are here today to talk about your real career as it exists today. Who knows in 5-10 years? Okay. So ER aspirations gone business. So you're in organic chem. It's junior year of college and you're having this, oh crap moment. Now what do I do? Because I have all of these science classes, I'm sure. So what do you do? What's your next step?
I pivoted and I did psychology. So I finished my degree in psychology because I had taken one class and I was I was enamored. I loved it. I loved every bit of it. Abnormal psych, all of it. I thought it was the coolest thing ever. It was really one of the only things that interested me. And so I thought, well, maybe I'll go to grad school for that. And then, long story short, I didn't go to grad school for that. I went to grad school to get my MBA. But yeah, psychology was it, which is interesting because I feel like psychology and a business degree helped me a lot in my HR role.
It's funny because I always laugh with my HR friends because I feel like a lot of us want to be psychologists who wanted to parade around in suits all day because there is just so much human psychology to how organizations run well. And I think that's those of us who love the field, that's part of what has really attracted us. So, okay, so you decide on psych. How'd you get into business? What was your first job coming out of school?
Oh my gosh, my first job, I don't think anybody in HR starts in a real glamorous role. I certainly didn't. I started in staffing. I was doing temporary staffing, trying to hire welders for $7.50 an hour, thinking this is tough. Like this is really hard work. People wouldn't show up for work. So I would go and try to pack pickles on the line. And I'm like, this is tough. This is really hard. Lots of long hours, but it taught me so much. Anybody that asked me about, how do I get into HR? What should I do? I learned everything. I cut my teeth so hard in staffing. So that was my first gig, and I did that for a few years.
Yeah. It's funny you talk about the unglamorous start. I started as an admin assistant, and I had an undergraduate degree, and I thought I'm going to take on the world. And I had a lot of ego, and I didn't want to accept that job, but it was with an excellent company on Wall Street. And I thought, like, I'm going to do this. And of course, everything always works out in the end. But there is something to be said about cutting your teeth in a really scrappy, roll your sleeves up organization where you almost don't really have a choice. I guess you could not do it, and then you likely would be fired, but you've got to get in. So what were some of the biggest takeaways from that?
My gosh, I learned so much related to like how you function in HR. I mean, employee relations issues were every day, every shift, every hour, right? We just had, some really unique characters that would come to work for us. I learned everything about work comp. I learned everything about unemployment. I learned everything about how to do I-9s correctly. It was a crash course in HR for someone that didn't have a degree. I didn't have a labor relations degree or an HR management degree. And it was my undergrad degree. So I learned all of the basics it takes to be a generalist, really.
Mm-hmm. So tell us about the arc of your career from there.
Gosh. So I did that for a while. And then one of the clients that I was actually supporting, I got a call from them, and the HR manager on site was like, "Hey, I'm taking a different job. I'm being promoted, and I want you to come fill my role." And I had done staffing for that company before, which was a Fortune 500. And I wasn't quite ready. I kind of liked the chaos of staffing, which makes some sense. I mean, I wanted to work in the ER. I kind of like chaos, I wasn't quite ready, but I thought this is probably time. It's my foray into it. I didn't have I hadn't had formal HR quote unquote experience at that point, just all this staffing work that I'd done. So I took the role. And, I was a supervisor on site in a manufacturing facility for a couple hundred people. And that was also great. That taught me like corporate HR and what it means to actually have a back office and to have support and to run benefits programs and things that I hadn't done in staffing. And, we all remember, well, some of us, depending on how old you are, remember 2008 and how difficult that was, right? And I was working in printing. And that was not a great time to be in that business. And we were doing mass layoffs. And it was a tough time. And I thought to myself, I was in my mid-20s, and I thought, I need to find a job in a industry that's stable. I really need a stable industry because I was really tired, and it really took an emotional toll on me to constantly lay people off. I mean, these were men and women that had worked 30, 35 years in their career.
Yeah.
And I'm sitting across the table from them saying, "Hey, thanks, but here's your severance package." And I thought, I don't want to be in a dying industry. I want to be in an industry that's thriving. Yeah. And I came across a job in the energy industry, and I was like, seems like everybody's going to want electricity. How about this? And that's what I've been doing since, pretty sustainable. So since 2010, I've been in the energy industry, and it's been amazing.
Okay. So what is it about that industry in particular that excites you?
For us, I think it's like in the last 5 to 10 years, I feel like it's changed more than it has in the last 50 years. There's nothing in our lives that doesn't require the essential service that we provide. And knowing every day that you go to work and that's what you're doing, and we cater to rural America, it's just meaningful work. It's essential work. I mean, you power hospitals, you power businesses, you power homes. It's like you have a real clear line to the work that you're doing and the impact that is making. Yeah. And it's just pretty neat. And really, I mean, open a newspaper today and you're going to find something related to how much power we need to, power our lives in the future.
Yeah, more and more and more. What's really interesting about you, Kacy, is you have this very consistent through line about service and support and really having meaning beyond what you are showing up and doing every day. So that's pretty cool to see how consistent you've been in choices in your life.
Right. Service is everything. I mean, years ago, servant leader was like the hot term. And I thought, I don't really even know what that means. But, as you dig into it and you think about it, I do want to show up and serve people and be the best that I can. so
Yeah.
they can go be the best that they can, you know?
Yep. Yep. What would you attribute your success to?
I feel like people always say it's something, it's attributed to this one mentor that I had, this one person that
Yeah.
I had. And I have worked with some really cool people over the years. I've worked with a lot of people that pushed me to do things that I didn't think I was ready for yet because they saw something in me or they believed in me. And so I think part of it is that, being ready when the opportunity happens,
Hmm.
but also just doing it scared, doing it
Hmm.
without knowing and never saying no to an opportunity. I don't know in my 20-ish 4-year career if I've ever walked into my CEO's office and said, I don't know how to do this or I'm scared to do this. I've said, this might be hard, but I'll figure it out. And
Hmm.
I think that's part of it. Just
Yeah.
being
Yeah.
scrappy enough to figure it out.
Yeah. So I'm curious, like, did you not feel the scared or did you work through the
Oh,
scared?
no. No, I felt the scared.
You felt the
No.
scared. All right. So
Yeah.
tell like what's when it comes to the only way out is through. I am
Mhm.
scared and this is frightening and I'm still going to do it anyway. What advice would you give to somebody to do that?
Yeah, I mean, it's just a choice you make, right? You can either say no, and I'm going to retreat, and I am going to be scared, which is what I did in college when it came to whether or not I wanted to go to med school. I said, no, I'm
Mm-hmm.
scared. I don't think I can do it. I don't have the confidence. And maybe that was part of it. I mean, now that, we're talking about that, maybe that's part of, I'm not going to put myself in that situation again. I'll just do it scared.
Mm-hmm.
Because what's the worst that's going to happen? I mean, I was thinking about going into a profession where I'm saving lives, right? We're not saving lives over here. Like, what is the worst that's going to happen? If I do this, I'm scared and I make a mistake. I'm going to go put my tail between my legs and say, hey, I made a mistake. And I've done that many times and they've been really expensive mistakes. And I've always immediately said, hey, here's a problem. I've taken accountability. I know how to fix it. And then you just kind of build that muscle as you go. The
Mm-hmm.
hot thing now is, but did you die? No, I didn't die, right? I did it scared. I made
Yeah.
mistakes. You walk through it and it's just like any other muscle. You just keep
Yeah.
building and building and building until things don't seem as scary anymore. There's no
Yeah.
magic pill to that though.
Well, and I think that's a really good point because there isn't a magic pill. It is a muscle. You have to just almost psych yourself up, right? I know in the times where I have had that, I always like equate it to like that little person on your shoulder who's just kind of your inner voice, and that person's usually not very nice and telling you all of the worst parts of yourself that you think of yourself and that imposter
Mm-hmm.
syndrome. And really, the only way out is through. And you have
Yes.
to just do it anyway. I think that there is some safety net in the political capital that you can gain for yourself. And by that, I mean the network of people in your workplace who know you, who respect you, so that when the mistakes happen, they know, but she's really strong. She made a mistake. We're human. Let's all learn and move
Mm-hmm.
forward. So I'm curious,
Mm-hmm.
like, did your social network, your kind of like political capital, how much did that play a part in you even being able to get over and survive the mistakes?
Everything. You build up trust in every interaction that you have with people. It's not some big sweeping thing that I have this title now, so everybody gets to trust me and everybody thinks
Yeah.
that, I'm going to have it all figured out. Every interaction that I have with my leaders or my peers is me putting a little marble in the trust jar, and them putting one in mine. That's just how it is. So yeah, when I've made mistakes in my career, it's like, hey, here's a couple of my marble. I'm depleting my
Mhm.
jar a little bit. But I still have a lot in there because I've done what I've said I'm going to do over the years. And I work with really intelligent engineers and technicians and people that I'll never be as smart as, and I don't pretend to be. My skill set's different, right? Like
Mhm.
my skill set is different than their skill set. And so
Mhm.
there's just kind of a mutual respect.
Yeah, I love the analogy of the trust jar. And I think that's something people should remember that you are building trust. And sometimes things happen that might take a marble or two out. And
Mm-hmm.
that's okay because it's a fluid relationship, but you always on balance want to have more,
Yes.
obviously, than fewer.
I think I stole that from Brene Brown. She does a really good job of explaining. I think she uses marbles as she's talking about it too. So she
I love
explains
it.
it much more eloquently.
I love it. I love it. What's been the hardest part of your career? When you look back and you think about the twists and the turns, what's been the hardest part of your career?
I think it depends on what chapter you're in.
Yeah.
Early on, it was just the constant work for very little pay, right? It was just never, you're just working nonstop. for very little pay when you first start in your career. So at that time, that was really stressful. You fast forward and you really start to be seen as the leader of people and the HR function, and people get really real and really raw with you very quickly. And you start to take on that emotional baggage, and you don't have good boundaries, and you start to feel the weight of the things that they're bringing to work. That was a difficult chapter. The chapter I'm in now is, of course, every chapter, the one that you're in feels like the freshest, most difficult chapter. And now it's just balancing, the demands of work and being a really good, wife to my husband, like that. It's difficult to do all of those things and to go all in on work, but also compartmentalize, shut that off, go home and not be HR Kacy, right? And just get lost in the moment when you're doing. So it depends on what season you're in. The work has never been hard. I've never been afraid of the work.
Do you think that anybody can have it all?
I don't even know what that means, but sure. Yeah. You get to define that though. Like my have it all is not the same as somebody else on my team's have it all. So if you define it the way that you want, sure, you can have it all. But to think that you can be running 100 miles an hour and be, a 10 out of 10 executive and a 10 out of 10 mom and a 10 out of 10 wife and a 10 out of 10 sister all the time is a great recipe for burnout.
Yeah. I agree. I'm going to age myself, but I always used to say I'm a woman of the 90s, meaning like I can do it all. And then life happens. You have, now I've got aging parents. I have kids about to go to college. I've got like a network of family and friends in the career. And I've come to believe that like you, we can have it all, but it's the balance. You have to decide what the balance is, because you can't have the entire pie for every slice, right? So you've got to decide which slices need the biggest cut. And that is a fluid thing. And so individual, and nobody can parse out your pie for you. You've got to decide what that needs to be.
One thing, you saying, I'm a product of the 90s. I grew up in the 90s. I can do all these hard things. I just think about how different life was when my mom was raising me, right? I'm a product of the 80s. And I just think to myself, you know what she wasn't doing? She wasn't looking at Instagram trying to find 17 different recipes to try for the night. Like she wasn't worrying about what the neighbors were posting. She wasn't worried about the hot new fitness trend. She wasn't worried about her skincare routine being 17 steps so she looks like a boiled egg. Like none of those things were happening in the 90s. And like we just live in a world that is too fast. There's just too much going on and too much intake, that until you start to filter some of that stuff out and figure out what you really mean when you say you have it all, I think it's just kind of a fool's errand to constantly think that you can keep up with everything.
Yep. So I'm curious because I want to ask you about the concept of executive presence. When we think about folks who want to stand out at work and they want to be seen as executive material, I might not be ready today, but keep your eye on me because I'm the one who's coming up. How do you know executive presence when you see it?
I feel like this is such a hot topic these days. Like everybody's talking about executive presence and how it's such a dated concept and bring your whole self to work. Yeah, I mean, sure. Okay. I think executive presence, the way I look at it is your leaders want to be able to know that whatever room you are in, you can handle it, right? You can read the room, you can engage your clients, you can treat your customers well, you can handle any room that you're in. And I have been given feedback over my career that no matter what happens, you're calm, you're cool, you're collected, right? And I think that's, their way of saying you have some sort of executive presence related to how you show up in a room or how you work a room, no matter what the situation is. Now, I told you, I'm just a country kid from rural Illinois. So somebody asked me this question one time, and this is what I answered when they said, "What's executive presence?" And I said, when you go to a business function or a business dinner, you're at a conference and you see some leftover rolls and butter on the table and you're like, man, I want to take those home. Right? Like I'm going to be hungry later. I'm going to want that. Don't take the butter. Don't take the rolls, right? Like that's executive presence, knowing when to stop the urge that you might have. So you show up as someone that's it. Like you're confident and you know how to read the room. You're unbothered by the little things, right? You're just thinking about the bigger picture thing and you're taking more of a bird's eye view about it. And so that resonated with that person. I'm like, don't take the butter. That's what you want, when it comes to executive presence. But,
I love that. Yeah.
each company has their own definition of executive presence, right? Like you might work at a company that's super laid back. And if you show up stuffy, they're going to be like, you're not the kind of leader that we want. It just depends, on the company that you're working at, what their values are, what your mission is, and who you're serving, really.
Yep. I love the analogy. And it's like that easy reminder, don't take the butter. Don't take the butter. Because what it's really about is judgment, right? Like,
It is.
do you want enough is enough words, right? I know that that's a big one is more junior people are using a lot of words to get to the point. Don't take the butter.
Don't take the
So
butter.
I like the reminder. Now,
Yeah.
what about, you mentioned bring your whole self to work. So let's talk about that. What's your feeling on that whole movement that came out?
Yeah, I mean, for me, I've always thought about it as more of a how I approach work and like what is my moral compass and what am I unwilling to budge on, right? Not so much about do I have a mohawk today or whatever, like that's never been my style anyhow, but more about there are certain things I am not willing to compromise on. And there are certain things I am not willing to sweep under the rug. And if I am ever in conflict with that and I'm asked to, continually bump up against that wall or do something that I don't feel good about, I'm not bringing my whole self to work and I won't flourish there. I just won't do it. I've had times in my career where I've said, if if you're expecting me to do this, I'm just telling you, I'm not the one. I'm not going to be able to do that. Not that I've ever worked for anybody like super shady or anything like that, but there have been certain situations or outcomes where I've said, this is a line in the sand for me. This needs to happen or I'm going to have a serious, issue with that. To me, that's bringing your whole self to work, knowing what you stand for and what you're not willing to compromise on. And I can't lead like somebody else. Like I'm me. I have my own experiences. You're you. You have your own experiences. So if you have to pretend like you're somebody else at work, that's hard. Those are long days.
Yeah. I was going to say that's not sustainable. I think we can put on a mask and pretend to fit in for any given time. So I'm with you. I like it. Bring yourself to work. The issue I have with that is that I think it gives some people the kind of the leeway to not read the room, to not clue into how we communicate here, to not modulate and sharpen and modify their own communication approach, because this is just who I am. I'm really direct, right? So
sure.
I work with some, I've worked in the past, I know you have too, because these people are everywhere who it's just like, this is how I am. Deal with it. And that's fine. I mean, you can be completely steadfast and unwilling to modulate yourself, but based on the situation. And you've got to realize that's going to limit you, because the people that I have found who move the fastest up the corporate rank are able to read the room and, again, not change who they are, but don't take the butter.
Yes.
Figure out, like, how do I need to approach this particular person? Because I know if my whole true direct New Yorker self, I'm going to lose them. So that to me is the issue I have with the whole bring yourself to work, bring your whole self to work.
Yes. I wholeheartedly agree that the way you show up has consequences. So if you want to be, somebody that railroads others and talks over them and interrupts them and has low emotional intelligence, that's fine. You can bring that whole self to work and you're probably going to stay in the position that you're in, which is fine. You can do that.
Yeah. So what are your personal values as it relates to work?
Yeah. I have said over the years, I kind of think about it from a legacy perspective. So when I'm no longer at this company and I walk away, it takes like 10 minutes for, us to post a backfill, when people walk away, it's like,
we're all
you think you're gonna like, this place is going to collapse without you. It's not, right? It's not for any of us. Like our companies are stronger than any one of us. But I always think to myself, when I do walk away or when I'm having my retirement speech one day, I walk out the door, I hope people, at least for a couple of days, say, you know what? She was really warm and she was really kind. And she was really competent at her job. And that's how I try to show up every day. Those three things are kind of like my North Star, and they help me stay on track whenever I maybe step out of my adult or I get emotionally hooked at times. Like, this is not warm. This is not kind, Kacy. Get back in line.
Yeah. I love that. Well, did you have a point in your career where you really deliberately figured that out? Or Is that just something that you've always known about yourself?
I don't know that there was a specific time, but I know that I'm a type A go-getter. I'm direct. I'm to the point. I move quickly. And I know that sometimes I don't need to be that person in the moment. And so I think maybe it was, now that you asked me this question, the DISC, like the personality profile.
Yes. Yes.
I used to be an S, which is like the steady, steadfast harmonizer. I want to bring people together. I want to make sure everybody's feelings are taken into consideration. I moved from an S to a D, which is like the direct, which is hard to do. It's completely opposite on the, and I think maybe when that happened, I was like, ooh, do I want to be a D? Like, do I want to be that person? And so I'm trying to balance some of like the demands of the job with how I want to show up as the head of HR.
Yeah.
And maybe it was that moment that I realized that right in the middle is where I like to be. I like to be right in the middle of those two.
Yep. So you can flex. You can flex either way. Yeah. I think that the concept is really important. So for people listening to really think about what are those 1 or 2 or 3, what I'll call, their values, but it's also about your brand. When you're not in the room and somebody's talking about you, what do you want them to say? What is that legacy conversation? But for folks who are earlier in their careers, they're not yet thinking about professional legacy yet, but it is this idea of deliberately decide what you want to be known for. And that is your brand. And then check yourself against that every once in a while. Is the way I'm showing up, the way I'm behaving, the way I'm speaking, the way I treated that really tense, high stress situation, was that in line with what I want my brand to be? And I think that kind of intention is really powerful.
It is. Yeah. You got to hold up a mirror sometimes and say, wait a second, was that my best self? No. And even when you have the tools to know how to be a better self, sometimes in the moment, it's hard.
Yep. That humanness kicks in, and we remember we are all human. So let's kind of flip over to the HR side, because we are inside the promotion room here. Kacy, I'm curious, what would you say that my audience would be most surprised to know about what we're actually talking about behind closed doors?
One thing that I think maybe people don't remember is that they're, like it or not, auditioning for their promotion every day at work, every single day. So you might think, I'm going to nail this interview. I'm going to ace this interview. I already know who you are at work. I already know how you show up. So yes, the interview is part of it, especially when you have, really equally qualified individuals. If one's vision is a little bit better or more in line with the company's than another, yeah, you might eke out in the interview, but we already know who you're going to be. We already know. It's not a secret. And I think, remember, it's always an audition. If you want to climb the ladder, if you don't, and you're happy in your job, that's cool. That's totally fine. This is not for everybody.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's the sequence of many that is greater than the one big good thing that you did. It is the whole history of how you've been.
Yeah. I actually found myself saying one time to someone I was talking about, promotional opportunities, and I was like, I need to see more long-term strategic thinking. And it was like, well, promote me and I can do that. I'm like, well, you don't promote someone to hope that they'll completely change the way they're already doing work, right? Like, you promote them because you see those qualities already. Right? Which is it's always an audition.
Yeah. Right.
Always.
Because people have to remember, being tapped for promotion is a risk decision. You've got leaders who are willing to stake their reputations on the choice to promote you. So you've got to show some goods before you're going to get the title. So I think that's a really good reminder. I want to unpack this notion of strategic thinking. So, and I know you were using that as an example. So I'm going to kind of catch you on your back foot here, but I hear this a lot from my clients. My boss is telling me to be more strategic. What does that mean? So when you coach somebody, we want to see more strategic thinking from you. What does that mean to you? How do you that when you see it?
Yeah, I think it's thinking beyond the day-to-day tactical. That's the definition of it, right? Like, are you looking out 2 years from now? I feel like things change so fast now. We used to say, what's the 5 to 10 year outlook? Now it's like, what's 6 months from now going to look like? If the only thing that you're talking about in your one-on-one with your leader is, I did this thing on Friday, and then on Monday, I'm going to do this thing. And then I don't know how I'm going to handle this thing. Like, okay, that's day-to-day operational table stakes. Like, of course, I'm expecting you to do your job. What I want to know is where do you think we should go? And we might not be on the same page, but I'd certainly like to have your input. I'd certainly like to know that if you're, a director of a department or a manager of a department and, you're coming up for a promotion, that's not the first time in the interview that we're going to hear your vision for where you think the business should go. Do you understand how the business operates? Do you understand how we make money? Do you understand, the trust that we have built with, our customers and our members is the most important thing in an era of misinformation. And how are you going to make sure that you can articulate that you understand that? You do that in those one-on-one conversations with your leader. You do that every day in the work that you do. So I would say get out of the mundane day to day and let's talk 6 months down the road or a year down the road or 5 years down the road. Who knows what work's going to be like then, but that'll be fun.
We'll see. We shall
Yeah.
soon see. Thank you. I think that's a really helpful dissection of what that means because it's thrown out a lot and people just don't know until they know.
Mm-hmm.
And so this is part of the value I hope to impart elsewhere is that you're hearing this, you're being told and coached in certain ways. Let's just unpack and debunk what it means, what it actually means, at least to us, to HR guys.
It's not a real secret. I mean, it's really not a secret. Like, are you a long-term thinker? Do you understand how this business operates? If you can start there, that's a huge leg up, right? From just being a day-to-day operator.
Yep. And I always suggest go meet with your CFO or your controller, whoever you're closest to at whatever level you're at. That's a really good place to start. Learn how to read a P&L. And from there, now you start to understand how things are hinged.
Correct.
Yeah.
Or start your own business and manage your own P&L. And wow, you realize, okay, I get this.
Should have paid attention in econometrics.
That's right.
What advice would you give to someone who's listening who is getting really good performance reviews? They're being told you're doing great, keep doing what you're doing, and they're hungry and they're keen to stand out. What is the one bit of advice that you would give them tomorrow morning when you get to work? Start thinking and start doing this.
Stop talking about work, probably. If you're hungry and you're keen and you're getting good review, like performance reviews, and they're saying, hey, you're meeting all the metrics and the KPIs, great. They probably only know you as worker bee, right? Go be a human. Go talk about other things or find out whether or not you're getting lip service. Go ask someone else that you work with. Where am I missing things? What do you see? What are you hearing about our department from your peers? Go find out whether or not the information you're being told is actually accurate. And then go be a human and take off the work hat for a little bit. I know that's probably, really taboo for the HR person to say, but that is how you build relationships with people.
Yeah. And this is the vulnerable authenticity, right? And speaking of DISC, I use the DISC a lot. I actually love the DISC. There are some areas of where people are plotted on the DISC who really don't like sharing. They're just not comfortable. And that's okay.
Right.
There's no requirement that we all need to come and share our entire lives. And when it comes to relationship building and building trust between humans, there is an element of camaraderie and sharing. So it is necessary. If it's not in your comfort zone, figure out what you are comfortable sharing and find a way to connect.
Yeah. And it's really a vulnerability dance, right? If I share something with you and you share nothing back, or I compliment you and you don't accept the compliment, it's like, oh, I was kind of vulnerable with you and you said, no, I'm good.
Yeah.
It's you get to edit and you get to decide what to share. And when all else fails, if you're too scared to share anything, just ask people about themselves. They love to talk about themselves. I've been blabbing for 40 minutes about myself. Like, people love to talk about themselves if you don't know where to start or you're scared to share, something about yourself.
Yeah. How important do you think likability is in career success?
It's really hard to work with someone that's unlikable, right? I mean, it really is. So, I think there are times that you really have to remember we're not friends, right? Especially in HR. Like, I can be friendly and I can be kind and I can be fun to be around, but I can't be your friend. I'm not going out on the weekend with you as a friend. That doesn't mean you're unlikable, right? It just means that you have boundaries, but someone that's, I guess it depends on your definition of unlikable. We probably all have a different flavor for what we can tolerate, but if somebody that's cruel just to be cruel is not somebody I want leading ever. Because that's going to be a me problem, right? Like, that's going to be a future people problem that I'm going to have to deal with. So I would not be interested in that.
Yeah. So when you are seeing talent across your organization, what are you looking for in somebody who you're like, I'm going to keep my eye on that person?
Curiosity for sure. Someone that's curious about how things work and someone that's not afraid to say, I don't think I understand this. Tell me more about XYZ. So just a little bit of curiosity goes a long way. There's like 100 other things that would be nice to see in someone. But to me, that's like a baseline of like, nobody has it all figured out. And if you act like you do, it's kind of off-putting, right? It really is off-putting. And so I love to see curiosity in people on the team.
Yeah. Love that. Love that. So Kacy, I always like to end with the same question because I love to read. And so I always like to ask my guests, your favorite business or self-help book, my favorite genres. What have you got?
My gosh. Well, I just finished one last night and I cried myself to sleep. So I'm not going to recommend that one. It was heartbreaking. I would say maybe most like life-changing book is probably Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl.
Viktor Frankl.
That book was unbelievable to imagine what people can go through and come out with. I can't even put it into words. So that one had a large impact, I would say. From the business side, oh my gosh, there's so many. I would say the one that I have recommended the most recently when I've been talking to our workforce about conflict resolution and how to show up in high stress moments is Chatter. That's the name of the book. I think his name's Ethan Kross is the author, and I want to say he's a professor at U of M. And it is really interesting. It's a really interesting deep dive into all of those stories that we tell ourselves and how that shows up in the work that we do and the way that we, go about this world. And there's some really cool stories about, how nature helps quiet some of that chatter. And so that's probably the one that I've recommended most lately at work.
Awesome. That's one I have not heard of. So thank you.
Yeah.
I'm going to add that to my Amazon book list.
Yes.
Kacy, thank you so much for joining me inside the promotion room. This has been fun and informational, so I appreciate it.
Yes, of course. My pleasure. Thank you.
Thanks for joining me inside the promotion room, and be sure to follow the show so you never miss an episode. Cheers to your success.